Yo, guys,
It's the RQ Code podcast. One of
talking
this.
about dominant, creative, normalizing, harmonizing subtypes.
Yes, bro. Let's do it.
All right, so we have some images on the whiteboard we'll talk about, and I wrote a script to discuss the system. So let me start with the script. So we have an example. Imagine two individuals. They share the exact same Jungian cognitive wiring. Their
What are we looking
information
at?
metabolism, the script. Oh, you want me to right here, the script? Are you on the Google Docs?
No.
Join the Google Docs.
Alright. Should we just share the screen or Google Docs?
Oh yeah, share the Google Docs.
Fine.
True, that's smart, yeah.
It will close the whiteboard though. Save it.
Um,
Save the whiteboard.
save the whiteboard, yeah. So how do we save the whiteboard? Uh, how do we save? I forgot how to save the whiteboard. Oh, what's this? Clear page. No. Right click, export, PDF.
Yeah, export the PDF.
And we'll call this subtype system. Okay, I exported it. Did you get it?
I export as well.
Okay, I don't know where it's saved. Oh, okay, it's saved under the name there. Okay, you export too? Okay, do you want me here? How about I share the whiteboard? Because so let me do share. Share is not you can request. Okay, I requested to share. And wait, how do I share screen?
Click share.
Share screen. This one, right? Can you uh can you
Yeah,
see
I can
it?
see it. Yeah.
Wait, your screen is paused. Okay, so you can just see my screen.
Yeah.
Okay, so right here, imagine two individuals that share the exact same Jungian cognitive wiring. Their information metabolism is identical. If you map the structural topology of their psyche using standard socionics, model A, you will find the exact same functions, the exact same positions, dictating how they process reality. By all theoretical accounts, they are psychological twins. So why does one aggressively expand their territory and dominate the boardroom, while the other retreats from chaos to meticulously map data in isolation? This is the twins problem of the standard socionics. Model A is mathematically elegant. It gives us the invariant core of a human being, the hardware architecture of the mind that does not change. But because it's a static model, it struggles to account for energy, adaptation, and variance. It tells us the structure of the engine, but tells us nothing about how the engine behaves when you drop it into a chaotic high-pressure environment. For decades, this missing variable forced people into a corner. When they saw two identical types behaving differently, they either mistyped them or they watered down the theory until the definitions became meaningless. But there's a solution. A way to map behavioral variance without breaking the structural integrity of the base type. Developed by Victor Gulenko, the DCNH subtype system completely redefines how we look at psychological adaptation. The DCNH, dominant creative normalizing harmonizing subtype system, introduces the concept of the shell, a dynamic behavioral vector field that wraps around the core invariant core of the psyche. This proves that your subtype isn't just a flavor of your personality. It is a highly specific combinatorial survival system. It's the algorithm your brain uses to minimize psychological friction between your internal hardwiring and the demands of the external world. Today, we're going to break down the mathematics of adaptation. We'll explore the three polarities that generate the four DCNH subtypes, dominant, creative, normalizing, and harmonizing, to show you exactly how environmental pressure forces the human mind to rewrite its own behavioral code. So there's some visual ideas, but we don't need to do those. I don't have those. You can picture a stark dark background with three axes forming a 3D coordinate system, the combinatorial basis. To understand a DCNH shell, we have to stop looking at human behavior as a collection of random traits. Instead, we need to map the generative axes. Gulenko identified three behavioral dichotomies. You can think of these as the coordinate system for psychological adaptation. Every time the external environment exerts pressure on the core type, the psyche responds by plotting the vector along these three axes. Let's break down the mechanics of each polarity. The first axis is the stress response, contact versus distance. When a complex system is hit by a perturbation, a crisis, a conflict, or sudden demand, it has to manage the resulting spike in kinetic energy. Individuals with a contact polarity minimize this psychological friction by moving toward the stressor. Their energetic vector is active. They require direct engagement, preferring to neutralize a threat or solve a problem by closing the distance. They thrive in environments that demand high mobilization, acting as the vanguard of the group. Individuals with a distant polarity do the exact opposite. They minimize friction by increasing the spatial or psychological distance between themselves and the stressor. Their vector is defensive. They absorb the shock, retreat behind the boundaries, and require time and isolation to process the data before reacting. They are the system's rear guard, prioritizing structural integrity over immediate action. Now there's a new axis. On the left, initial, on the right, terminal. So the second axis is the task trajectory, terminal versus initial. The polarity describes how an individual moves through time and processes our objectives. It is the difference between a discrete and a continuous function. The terminal polarity is strictly linear. These individuals are driven by closure. When they initiate a process, they are structurally compelled to bring it to absolute conclusion, to allocate energy to a new task. They're highly resistant to context switching. If you interrupt their trajectory, you introduce severe psychological friction. They provide a system with finishing power. The initial polarity is highly nonlinear. They operate as continuous multi-threaded generators. They have a very low activation energy for starting new tasks, allowing them to pivot, improvise, and launch multiple processes simultaneously. However, they struggle with closure, often abandoning a trajectory once the initial burst of novelty decays. They provide a system with constant initiation. And now there's the final axis. The final axis is environmental sensitivity, connective versus ignorative. This measures how tightly an individual's I had to zoom in because this was too small to read. Internal state is coupled to external variables. The connective polarity means the individual operates with high environmental permeability. They are acutely sensitive to shifts in the spatial, relational, and environmental or emotional atmosphere. When the environmental changes, they instantly update their internal algorithms to match it. They act as a feedback loop, constantly syncing with the group or the ecosystem to maintain harmony and cohesion. They ignore if polarity operates with low environmental coupling. They are structurally insulated from the atmosphere around them. Whether the environment is chaotic, tense, or joyful, they maintain their internal trajectory They treat external shifts as noises to be filtered rather than data to be integrated. This makes them highly autonomous, capable of enforcing rules or pushing radical ideas regarding regardless of the social cost. All three axes return to the screen, intersecting to form the 3D space. 8 vertices appear, but four are highlighted in bright, distinct colors to represent DCNH. Contact or distant, terminal or initial, connective or ignorative. None of these polarities can exist in isolation. When they intersect, they lock together to form a perfectly balanced topological framework. They generate the four distant adaptational strategies, the four subtypes. That determines exactly how you will survive the chaos of the real world. Do you want to read from part three, Qasim?
Yeah,
Because I'm
why
pretty
not?
tired.
Part 3, interfacing with Model A, the core versus the shell. Um,
You don't have to read the visual idea. Just do the voiceover. Can you scroll down and stuff? Here,
no, I
share
can't.
you. Okay, okay, I will scroll down for you. Just do like the
Right.
voiceover.
To truly understand the genius of the DCNH system, we have to look under the hood. We have to map exactly how the behavioral shell interfaces with the hardwired architectural model A. In standard Socionics, model A is the invariant categorical structure. It defines the dimensionality of your functions. Your base function operates in 4 dimensions: experience, norms, situation, time. Your polar or vulnerable function operates in only 1 dimension: poor, uncalibrated experience. This geometry does not change. One-dimensional function cannot magically become a four-dimensional function, regardless of how much you practice. So if the capacity of the function is locked, how does the subtype shell alter behavior so drastically? The answer is activation energy. Subtype shell acts as a vector field applied over the invariant manifold of model A. Do not change the capacity of your cognitive blocks. Change their throughout throughput and velocity. When environmental pressure forces you into a specific subtype, it radically distributes the energetic weights across your psyche, artificially inflating certain blocks whilst pressuring others. Now look exactly how this mapping works for each of the four subtypes. When the environment demands mobilization and linear execution, it forces the psyche into the dominant subtype, drastically displays a massive energy tensor to the ego block, because the dominant subtype operates on a contact vector, requires direct active engagement with the right external world. To achieve this, the psyche routes almost available kinetic energy into morphs capable of high-dimensional functions. You stop on relying on subconscious processing that brute forcing reality to your base and creative functions. When the environment becomes stagnant and requires stochastic perturbation, the psyche shifts in the creative subtype. This subtype completely bypasses the rigid normative structures of the mind, that it artificially energizes the contact blocks, the function that borders the external world, because the creative subtype is innovative of standard procedures and ensuring its trajectory. It pulls away from the deep evaluative functions and pushes to rapid fire situation processing. But what happens when the environment demands strict adherence to the rules? What happens when the system is collapsed and requires an anchor? The psyche adopts a normalization social. This is the most structurally taxing adaptation. The normalizing shell forces massive amounts of psychological energy into the super ego block. These are your social and tool normative functions. They have low dimensional mean they require tremendous amount of conscious effort to run. Individual over-indexes on introverted logic and introverted ethics to show perfect compliance, spending maximum energy to run a sub-optimal block simply because the environment demands a structural integrity. When the environment is saturated with friction and system requires stabilization, the cycle shifts into the harmonizing subtype. Structurally, this diverts the psychic energy away from the conscious active blocks and sinks it deeply into the super ID block. This is a subconscious receptive region of model A, by heavily amplifying introverted intuition and introverted sensing. The individual dampers their outward velocity. They stop trying to change the environment, instead alter their internal state to absorb the environment's impact. Here lies the mathematical beauty of the theory. Once the environmental pressure decays, the subtype shell dissolves. The hyperinflated ego returns to baseline. Exhausted hyperego relaxes. The invariant structural model A remains exactly as it was. The core architecture of the subtype allows it to run into it. You want to do the next part?
Let me see how many parts there are. Okay, there's 8. Okay, we'll each do one part. So we're on part 4.
Yeah, part 4.
So we got these 3D axes. One of them is the contact distant, and then terminal initial and connective ignorative. And these are all a matrix. So it's um, the matrix splits into 4 distant quadrants. And then when these 3 behavioral polarities intersect, they generate 4 highly specific survival algorithms. 4 distant ways the human mind can organize itself to process reality. And it's in order too. Dominant, creative, normalizing, and harmonizing. The dominant subtype, the vanguard. We begin with the dominant subtype. This is the vanguard of any group or system. The dominant subtype is the engine. Because they are contact, terminal, and connective, they impose their will on the external environment. They are the directors, the founders, and the project leaders. Whether they are using extroverted logic to ruthlessly optimize the business supply chain or extroverted ethics to emotionally inspire a crowd to action, their behavior is unmistakable. They are loud, visible, and demanding. So notice how TE, extrovert logic, and extrovert ethics, FE, they're called a reflector axis. So this is a reflector axis. These two are on a reflector because you have they're reflectors. You have access like TI, FE. You have TI, TE, which is orbit, and TE, FE is reflector. But if you take a quiet, highly analytical base type, like let's say an INTP, quiet, and put them in a dominant shell, they behave completely out of character for a standard introvert. They will step out and aggressively push their intellectual frameworks onto others. So it's like that TI becomes projecting onto others. That TI is now extroverted. See, they will push their intellectual frameworks onto others. So I'm thinking that TI is like being projected. However, the dominant subtype has a fatal weakness. Because they're constantly outputting energy and demanding linear progression, they burn out easily. If a system is purely dominant, it will eventually exhaust its resources and collapse. Second one, the creative subtype, the catalyst. To prevent that collapse, the system requires the creative subtype. This is the catalyst because they're contact, initial, and ignorative. So this one is contact, terminal, and connective. This one is contact, initial, and ignore. So they only share contact, the first vector. They don't care about the established rules or the social environment, atmosphere. They are the rebel, the inventor, and the iconoclast. They inject stochastic noise into the environment. They operate purely on novelty and instinct. Because, so, you know, this is another reflector, extrovert intuition and extrovert sensing, NES. Because the reflector functions, NESC, are amplified, they are fantastic in a crisis where the standard operating procedures have failed, but their weaknesses follow through. Without a team around them, their energy dissipates into a chaotic mess of unfinished projects and abandoned prototypes. They provide the spark, but they cannot maintain the fire. Normalizing subtype, the anchor. When the dominant expands the territory and the creative introduces chaos, the system is risking of tearing itself apart. It needs an anchor. That is the normalizing subtype. They are distant, terminal, and ignorative. So let's see, distant is different from contact for the dominant and creative. Terminal, terminal is the same as this dominant, and ignorative is the same as the creative. So this one, terminal is the same as the dominant, ignoring is the same as the creative, and distant is not the same. So because they're distant, terminal, and ignorative, they process tasks in a strictly linear manner and block out the noise of the external environment to focus their internal frameworks. They are the architects of the rules. And I don't know where it says that, but normalizing is introverted thinking and reflector introverted feeling. It should say that. They take the chaotic raw gains made by the others and codify them into a sustainable structure. They ensure that the system is accurate, disciplined, and immune to therapy, but their weakness lies in the rigidity. They can completely disconnect from the reality of the situation, enforcing rules that no longer make sense to them. When the environment demands rapid adaptation, the normalizing subtype often freezes. Okay, I'm already seeing a pattern here. So look, I'm gonna put a space. So wouldn't logically, let's say you are Qasim, you are NITE. Wouldn't you want harmonizing because you get a boosted NI, harmonizing, you get a boosted NI, okay? And then wouldn't you want dominant? You get a boosted TE. So just think about this. Wouldn't this be the most ideal subtype for someone like Qasim? Would be harmonizing dominant or dominant harmonizing because you're boosting your top two functions. So now you have an ego. Now you have like an ultra ego. Let's see, like for any TI, wouldn't you want something like creative, which boosts these two, and harmonize and um, normalizing, which boosts. You see, now you have creative normalizing. Now you have the top two functions in your slot. Your ego, you're leading in your instrument function. It's called the creative, but I don't like creative because it contradicts with the creative subtype. I call it the instrument function, the instrumental function, the one that acts as a tool, as an instrument. And you can't use it creatively, because it is an instrument, and instruments are all used in creative ways. So wouldn't you want like normalizing creative or creative normalizing and harmonizing dominant for this? And let's say you are a um let's see here. Let's say you are a ESTJ. Wouldn't you want dominant TSI, TFE? And again, harmonizing NISI, because these boost, and that would be DH or HD. So we can already see a connection here. We can see that any function like TESI, TESI, TENI, FENI and FESI, wouldn't you want dominant harmonizing here? And then wouldn't you want harmonizing dominant for like SITE, NITE, NIFE, SIFE? So these are all the IJs. Oh no, these are IPs because these are all and these are EJs. Wouldn't you want EJs to be like DH or HD? And wouldn't you want IPs to be again DH or HD? Do you see what I'm thinking here?
Yeah.
So this is just my opinion. I'm gonna delete that because then you're boosting your top two functions. So like imagine you already have a very strong leading function and an instrument function, and then you're boosting your top two functions. Now it's like your ego is now a super ego, like not a super ego. It's like a boosted ego. Do you see it? Do you understand?
Yeah.
So that's just my thoughts on all of this. Now I don't know if I was on harmonizing.
You're
Was I on
harmonizing now.
harmonizing?
Yeah.
So finally, we have the harmonizing subtype, the stabilizing. They are distant, initial, and connective. They step away from stress and are deeply, acutely sensitive to the environment around them. So I'm guessing these are the most observant. These are probably the most observant. Let's see.
John Beef type harmonizing. Not
John
John Beef.
Bodine.
Yeah, John Bodine, yeah.
That's good. That means you have a boosted NI. That means your NI is very strong.
He feels I'm INTP though.
No, that doesn't make sense. According to Socionics, are harmonizing the most observant. Yeah, so harmonizing are noted for being sensitive and attentive to subtle changes in the environment. So, yes, harmonizing are the most observant and sensitive to environmental changes. And that's because of connecting, distancing, and initiating, how those three vectors combine. So let me finish reading it. So they're the mediators and the deep reflectors. They absorb the friction and the anxiety produced by the other three subtypes. They have a remarkable ability to foresee long-term consequences. That's because they have boosted NI. NI is consequences. SI is somewhat like consequences, but long-term consequences, NI. Sense the physical and emotional exhaustion of the group, that's SI. That's SI. So right here, this is NI, long-term consequences. Sense the physical and emotional exhaustion of the group, that's SI. However, they're energetically the weakest of the
That's
three.
not true.
If
NE is consequences.
No, NI. Look, if you look it up, it's NI. NE is possibilities. NI is consequences. So, because this right here is NI and SI boosted. So if placed in overly aggressive environment, they will compromise their own needs until they completely dissolve into the background. Okay, I'll read do you want to read part 6?
Yeah, it can be part 6. Part 5, you mean?
Part 5. So this is the compatibility matrix.
Alright. You study standard Socionics, you will eventually come to a massive contradiction. Model A tells us that certain cognitive pairings like duality are mathematically perfect. In the real world, we can't see perfect dual du, duals
Duals. Do you know what that is?
randomly.
Like INTJ ESFP.
I
Yeah,
know,
ENTP ISFJ.
I don't know,
Duals.
they
Like
go
your
well together, like Kanye West is a P, Kim Kardashian, INTJ.
disaster. So So just read this.
You're too funny, bro.
Bro, that's a disaster.
Alright, we got the six
Kanye,
perfect duels.
Ka-
Vanity upon one another. Why does why does the theory fail? Because model A only calculates the transfer, not information. Does not calculate the transfer of kinetic energy. You can have a perfect information channel with another person, but your energetic vectors are fundamentally misaligned. The system was built destructive interference. In the DCNH topology, relationships are modeled as coupled dynamical systems. There are two perfectly stable feedback loops.
all right, keep reading. The linear loop.
Oh,
You
the
keep
linear
reading.
dominant plus normalizing. The first stable configuration is the linear loop formed by the dominant and normalizing subtypes. Both share the terminal axis. They are both linear, discrete operators driven by task closure. However, they are completely orthogonal in their stress response, environmental sensitivity. The dominant projects energy outward, the normalizing the data retreats inward. Together they form a perfect thermodynamic engine. The dominant generates forward momentum, gracefully pushing the system into new territory. Normalizing acts as the low entropy anchor, codifying the rules and screwing the infrastructure. They do not compete for the same energy state. The non-linear loop created by harmonizing. The second stable configuration is the non-linear loop, formed by the creative and harmonizing subtypes. The two share the initial axis. They are continuous non-linear processes who thrive on open-ended exploration, but the kinetic energy perfectly complements the creative, introduces radical novelty and stochastic noise. The harmonizer acts as the shock absorber, mapping the relational data and improving the psychological comfort required to keep the creative form spiraling into total fragmentation. The volat the volatile loops volatile loops and structural shearing. What happens when you pair two dominants? Because they share the three polarities, there's no damping function in the system. Instead of a coupled system, you get symmetric kinetic competition. The friction escalates exponentially until the system clears itself apart. Consider combining dominant and the creative subtype. Both generative active outward energy, but the trajectories are opposed. In physics, when two forces push a material in opposite parallel directions, it creates structural shearing. The dominant tries to lock the creative onto a linear path. The creative tries to derail the dominant into lateral exploration. The hidden variable of human compatibility cannot just mark the information, must mark the momentum. Stable relationship requires differential in energy.
Okay, can you do part six too?
Or
Um, and then I'll do part seven, eight, and then you can do. Oh, it goes up to part eight. You do part six.
or
I'll do part seven and eight.
part
What
six.
do you think? What do you think so far? Pretty interesting.
Yeah, bro. Talk about the compatibility of DCNH. So
Yeah.
you don't think duality works?
Ah, that's a topic for a different one. I don't know.
Case
I don't
thinks
know.
bond pair is duality.
I don't know. Let's just because we got to go to the whiteboard next too.
Or group dynamics and phase transitions. In Glencore system, small groups are essentially dynamical systems seeking a stationary state. Most stable configurations, the lowest energy state of a social network is a complete tetrad. One dominant, one creative, one normalization, one harmonizing subtype. When all four vectors are present, systematic volatility is minimized. The group achieves perfect equilibrium. What happens when the system is unbalanced? Imagine a tech start founded by top four brilliant engineers, but for poor chance all four of them are operating in a creative subtype shell. Initially, the rhyme was highly generative. They brainstorm constantly invent a credible prototype. As the company grows, the system requires vectors to be pitched, requires a rigid code based on financial auditing. It requires someone to wish a normalization. It requires someone to manage the binary stress of the team harmonizing. With the group last is known the end state of highly systemic volatility stops on a hurdle collapse, and this is where the subtype shift occurs. Subtype shift is not conscious choice, it's a structural phase transition. When the environment exerts a continuous heavy pressure, environmental stress turns to the common psychological adaptation becomes unstable. Creators shall no longer minimize the friction that generates it. Prevent systematic failure to assist individuals when the group are forced to transition. Their internal behavior variable pretty much like a Markov chain. Probability of transition to a new subtype state is tied them depend on the structural demands of the current environment. Founded with the strongest underlying structural logic will feel the environmental pressure to establish order. Over a period of prolonged stress, they'll drop the initial contact polarities and shift into normalizing subtype. Under founder recognizing the power vacuum will step up, aggressively connect with arresters and shift into dominant subtype. The subtype shell has no inertia. Shifting polarity requires massive expenditure of psychological energy, cause a profound stress and then seek fusion. Don't worry, the system survives.
All right. Part 7, the algebra of adaptation. A stark black screen, a simple, elegant mathematical equation fades in. What is this? The derivative of xy equals 2? If you ignore the code here. So distance of transformation. Okay, there's some math here, algebra. When we look at these shifts, human intuition tells us that certain transitions should be easier than others. Structurally, this is completely false. Visual idea, a 3D graph appears. The three polarities, contact distant, terminal initial, connective ignorative, are mapped as a binary coordinate system. 0, 1 cubed. If we assign a binary value of 1 to the active polarities, contact, terminal, connective, and 0 to the passive ones, okay, so these are active, contact, terminal, connective, and other ones are passive, so those are 0. We can plot the subtype as coordinate vectors. The dominant sits at 1, 1, 1, the creative at 1, 0, 0, the dominant at 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 0, and the harmonizing at 0, 0, 1. Okay, so that means the dominant is the most active, and the other three are just one of the three is active. So neither are passive. But dominant is all three active, and the other three are one active from each vector. So the coordinates light up the 3D grid. Notice the symmetry. Every single subtype is equidistant from every other subtype. In mathematics, this is measured by the Hamming distance, number of polarities that must flip to move from one state to another. The structural distance between any two DCNH subtypes is always exactly 2. The tetrahedron rotates slowly. We see the mathematical operators transforming the nodes, text on screen, the Klein 4 group. Because its topological distance is constant, the transitions operate as a perfectly closed algebraic structure isomorphic to the Klein 4 group. This means you cannot just flip You cannot flip just one polarity. If you try to change from contact to distant without adjusting the other variables, the equation fails, and you are left in a state of extreme psychological entropy. You must undergo a complete dual flip transformation. The transition matrix is dictated entirely by the magnitude of the external stress tensor. The math proves that the human psyche has no opposites. It only has survival algorithms waiting for the right environmental variable to unlock them. Part 8, conclusion, the mathematics of adaptation. Visual idea. The screen fades to black. Slowly, the split screen from the very beginning of the video returns. The hyper-aggressive CEO is on the left. The quiet, methodical researchers on the right. The text appears, twin problem resolved. We began this journey by looking at two identical minds. Two people with the exact same cognitive architecture, behaving in completely contradictory ways. For a long time, standard typology looked at the variance as a flaw in the system. But as we've seen today, the variance isn't noise. It is the defining feature of human survival. The Model A block structure appears over both individuals. It is perfectly identical, but then a distinct glowing shell wraps around each of them. A dominant red shell for the CEO and a normalizing blue shell for the researcher. Okay, so it's saying that researchers are good at normalizing and CEOs are good at dominant. Model A, your base type, is the invariant structural topology of your psyche. It is the hardwired categorical map of how you process reality. It does not change, but survival in a highly complex, chaotic universe requires more than static geometry. It requires permutation. This is what the DCNH system is for. DCNH show. It is the group action upon the invariant space in your mind. When the environment exerts pressure, your psyche applies a transformational matrix. It artificially amplifies specific functional blocks. It shifts your polarities until it finds the exact configuration that minimizes psychological friction. See, that's what I'm saying. It is a brilliant self-optimizing algorithm designed to keep you alive and functioning. I think it works by how I was saying. Like, if you are an EJ, you want to be DH, or sorry, wait.
IJ is good for DNH as well.
If you want to be an IJ, then you want to be harmonizing dominant. If you want to be an
I prefer
EP,
DH. I want to be DH.
you want to be DC, or sorry, CN, and if you're IP, you want to be NC. That's my logic. That just makes the most sense. Do you see this?
Yeah, I see it.
So you're IJ, you probably want to be HD,
I
and
want to be
I'm
DH.
EP. You can be DH or HD, right?
Yeah,
And I can be NC or CN.
yeah.
That's the most that's the most fitting, I guess. So where was I? It's a brilliant self-optimizing algorithm designed to keep you alive and functioning. The visual zooms out. The two twins are no longer isolated. They are part of a massive interconnected network of human nodes, all pulsing in different DCNH colors, constantly shifting and balancing each other. All right, so we're almost done here. You are not broken because you act differently under pressure. You are not mistyped because you do not fit the perfectly sterilized archetype of your base sociotype. When you find yourself suddenly enforcing rigid rules in a chaotic workspace or stepping up to dominate a failing project or retreating to harmonize a fractured family, you are watching your own mental architecture actively rewriting its variables in real time. The human mind is not a rigid monolith. And if you guys, oh, monolith, that is like a monolith is a big stone. Monolith is a massive single block of stone Or is it? Okay. It is a highly adaptive combinatorial masterpiece. Your core type defines how you see the universe, but your subtype is how you survive it. Okay, so we're done with that. I can stop sharing my screen. Now let's pull the whiteboard.
Or should on the one who saved it?
Yeah, I saved it too. So we'll talk about the whiteboard.
You found it.
Yeah, I have it.
Well, you want to share it?
Yeah.
That's good, bro.
Okay, share. I gotta open it, right? So, um, see here. Share existing whiteboard. Oh, it's probably under existing whiteboard. Yeah, got it. Okay, I'm getting used to it. So right here, we have some pictures. So as you can see right here, these are all the possible subtypes. You have DN, DH, DC, DD, CH, CN, NH, CC, and they can be different. The order, the order matters, I think. So like, see, so you have a different subtypes. I have a total right here, 512 subtypes, 16 times 16 times 2. As you can see right here, all of the ones that are strengthened are the uh, the reflectors. These are all reflector functions. And how it works, you have sociotype and subtype are separate, and then they end up creating your personality. You have sociotype, which has to do with how you think, subtype, which has to do more with your behavior, and they combine and you form personality. And I think gender is also important here. I think gender is the other subtype personality. So like if you are, usually it's like this. Where's so if you are like ILI dash NI, that equals female, and ILI dash TE, that equals male. That's what I think. So basically,
I don't know. A man could be feminine though, and then a female could be masculine.
well, that's just how it is. Um, so basically, perception equals female,
I think you're too, because I don't think about NI that much, But just by it being
and you
NI
have
one.
and you have very strong an eye.
I think I'm more a higher T than NI.
Yeah, I think of it like that. Perception is equal to female, and judging equals male.
Yeah,
So I think we got to add that too and multiply by 2, and that's how you get 16 times 16 times 2, 512 different subtypes. And
yeah.
then we talked about this. This is just the matching, how it said that D give perceive, adjust. I don't exactly understand this. We see that D and H are both orange, so they adjust, and C and N are both white, so they conflict.
Oh,
So you want DN and CH together. Those are the duals. So we have new duality, DN and CH, duality of subtypes. And I'm going to read right here, I'm going to read this. So the combinatorial basis, three polarities. The four subtypes are not arbitrary. They are generated by intersecting three behavioral polarities, similar to Jungian dichotomies, and dictate how a system processes stress and tasks. Contact versus distant stress response. Contact moves toward the source of stress, invigorated by challenges, or requires direct engagement. Distant moves away from the source of stress, requires psychological or physical distance to process and respond. Then we have terminal versus initial task trajectory. Two, terminal, driven by closure, prefers to bring one process to its absolute conclusion before starting another linear execution. Initial, driven by initiation, prefers to launch new processes, highly capable of multitasking and rapid context switching. Three, connective versus ignorative, environmental sensitivity. Connective, highly sensitive to shifts in the external environment and group dynamics, alters behavior based on context. Ignorative, insensitive or indifferent to external environmental shifts, maintains an internal trajectory regardless of context. Okay, do you want to read the last thing here, the four subtypes?
yeah, why not?
Okay, go ahead.
The four subtypes. By combining this polarity, the model generates a matrix of four distant subtypes. Each each subtype amplifies specific information elements across any base type. Dominant polarities are contact terminal connective. Dominant amplified elements are extroverted logic and extroverted ethics. The profile dominant subtype the the profile is the dominant subtype, the engine of a group. They amplify the ego block, making them the most assertive, direct, and recognizable version of their base type. The product will on the virus down environment, mobilizing resources and people to achieve specific linear goals. The plurality of creative subtype is contact, initial, innovative, amplified elements of creative subtype, extroverted intuition, and extroverted sensing. The profile creative subtype is that the generator of a group, the amplified the generative flexible function needed to highly improvisational, adaptable, and unorthodox behavior. They ignore standard procedure in favor of independent expression, acting as catalyst for new ideas or sudden shifts in direction. The plurality of normalizing subtype is distant, terminal, ignorative. The amplified element of normalizing subtype is introverted logic and introverted ethics. The profile normative normalizing subtype is the structural anchor. They amplify the super ego block, prioritizing rules, self-regulation, and systematic consistency. The distance from chaotic stress to build and maintain a force of frameworks, showing the group system does not collapse into entropy. The polarities harmonizing distant initial connective, amplify the elements harmonizing subtype is introverted intuition, introverted sensing. The profile harmonizing subtype is the system stabilizer, amplifying super ID block the deeply tuned to the racial and aesthetic environment. They absorb the friction created by the other subtypes, seeking balance, comfort, synthesis, while remaining highly adaptable to shifting contexts.
Okay, so the last thing we're going to do, we're going to use this to determine our subtypes. So we're going to start here.
I don't want to
So
know.
we're going to,
I don't want to know.
So I'm gonna go first.
You go first, but I'm not doing this.
So contact versus distant stress response. Do I move towards the stress or do I move away from the stress? Honestly, I move towards the stress, I think. Let's see. I, so no, actually, let me finish reading. So contact versus distant stress response. Contact moves towards the source of stress, invigorated by challenges, requires direct engagement, moves away from the source of stress, requires psychological or physical distance to process and yeah, I move away from the stress. I don't like stress at all. So
I
I would
think
say
I
I'm
moved
distant.
towards it.
I would say I'm I would say I'm distant. This one's hard. Let's go to the next one. Terminal versus initial. So terminal, driven by closure, prefers to bring one process to its absolute conclusion. Yes. So I do prefer, yes, I'm definitely terminal. So I'm gonna write down um, distant terminal. So hold on. Oh, let's move this. So driven by closure, prefers to bring one process to its absolute conclusion before starting another linear execution. Yeah. Driven by initiation, prefers to launch new processes, highly capable of multitasking and rapid context switching. Honestly, these are hard because I feel like I'm both. But I would say I prefer to finish a task before moving on to the next one. I don't like to have a bunch of unfinished tasks. So this one is saying driven by closure, driven by initiation. I would say I'm terminal, but I think I'm both. I don't know. Connective versus ignorative. Okay, this one I know I'm ignorative. I'm ignorative. So connective, highly sensitive to shifts in the external environment and group dynamics. No, I'm not sensitive to the environment at all. Alters behavior based on context. Insensitive or indifferent to external environment shifts. No, I really don't pay attention to the environment. I would say I'm ignorative. Maintains an internal trajectory regardless of context. So I know I'm ignorative and terminal. I'm not sure if I'm distant or if I'm contact. So let's see if I can get one. So let's see here. And again, we have two subtypes, I think. We don't just have one subtype. We have a you could be
What's the
like N
answer? What's
dash
your answer
D.
then?
So am I dominant? Let's see. No, because dominant is not ignorative. Am I creative? No, because creative is initial. Am I harmonizing? Yeah, I'm harmonizing. Because I can't, or not, I'm normalizing, sorry. I'm normalizing.
Well,
So
can I do it now?
normalizing. Because I can't be harmonizing because I'm not connected.
Eh,
Okay, so now we're gonna say
I already know what
wait,
my one is. You'll probably disagree though.
hold on, we're gonna see. You have two. Um,
I think contact.
okay, so we're gonna do seam. Okay, so
I'm contact.
you think that you move towards the source of stress? You
Yeah,
like stress? You
yeah,
like stress?
yeah.
You don't move away from the source of stress?
No.
Okay. Okay, what about the next one?
I think I'm
So
initial.
you
I
like
have
to
I have multiple projects. I'm multitasking.
You don't like to finish one at a time. You like to start a bunch at a time.
Yeah,
So you're initial.
yeah,
And I think the last one, you're connective.
yeah, I'm connective. Put contact for the first one.
Well, we're gonna see even without it.
No, put
So you
contact,
think,
bro. I'm contact. Trust me.
well, we're gonna see the last one. Are you sure you're connective?
Yeah, I'm connective.
You don't ignore the environment or whatever.
No,
Did you
you
read it
told me in Maki chat.
in Makicha?
Yeah, you know how I'm like in Maki chat. I think I've had
I
a
don't
vibe.
remember. I don't remember. Can you repeat that? What did I say in Makicha?
No, what? You know how I'm like in Maki chat.
No. Oh, like sensitive to the environment.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're observant, right?
yeah.
Okay, so we know that you are connective and initial.
And contact is verbal.
So you can't be normalizing. You can't be normalizing because you're connected. You can't be creative because you're ignoring. You're not
No, no.
ignoring, you're,
No,
and you can only be harmonizing or dominant.
I'm dominant, I think.
You can't be dominant because you're distant. You're harmonizing.
How am I distant? I say I'm contact.
No, no, not distant. Sorry, initial. You're not terminal. You're harmonizing, bro. You're
Harmonized.
harmonizing. You're
But I'm
harmonizing.
contact though.
But look, which one is more important? Are you more contact or are you more initial? I think you're more initial.
I think contact, I'm more contact.
Honestly, I don't see you as dominant. Like knowing you for 2 years, I think you might be harmonizing dash dominant, but you're predominantly harmonizing. Like you just don't strike me as like a harmonizing or a dominant person. Like if you think about it this way, I think you're more initial. You definitely tend to start and driven by initiation. I think that's more dominant than you being contact. I think I
I think
think you're
I'm more
harmonizing.
contact, bro. I have to
I think
disagree with
you're
you, bro.
I think you're harmonizing dominant. I
Oh,
think that's your subtype. And I think I'm
I'm
normalizing creative.
oh,
I think it's like that.
oh,
So I think that's ours. Because I definitely agree to like let's see, if I was normalizing creative, I would be hold on, let's see what I would combine to be. Let me start here. So if I was creative, I would be contact, initial. If I was normalized, I'd be distant, terminal, ignoring. So both of them are ignorative, and I would be initial in contact. So I'm positive I'm ignoring. I'm positive that I'm ignoring, ignorative. And I would say I'm a mix between initial and terminating. And I would say I'm a mix between distant. I'm only positive and I'm ignoring. So because I only have ignoring in common, that means I can be normalizing creative because I have ignorative in common. Now
oh.
for you, the only one you have in common is connective. So that means that
I'm
you are
not
dominant
distant, bro.
harmonizing. No, no. Look, this is what we do. You only have connective that's in common, and I only have ignorative in common. So we know that you are harmonizing dominant, and I'm normalizing creative. Because if you're connective, that's only harmonizing dominant or dominant harmonizing. But
I don't think I'm
right
distant,
now,
bro.
but we know you're connective. So if you're connective,
Kinetic are
but
dominant as well.
but we need two subtypes, I think. Because look, right here we have two subtypes.
Uh, we're compatible. We're
What?
homo. Are we compatible?
Um, I don't know yet because you're H or D and I'm N or C. Do you think I'm more normalizing or creative?
Creative.
Do you think you're more dominant than harmonizing?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Um, hmm. Why do you think I'm more creative than normalizing?
I think you start a lot of projects. You you got a lot of creative ideas.
Yeah, but I'm normalizing too.
Yeah, but I think you're creative dominant.
You might be right. And you think you are, I would say you're harmonizing dominant then.
Bro, you don't know me, man. I'm dominant harmonizing.
Hmm. You think you are someone who is assertive, direct.
Yeah,
Okay, maybe right now it's hard to tell with like medication.
true.
But
But I'll
I
be
think this was a
harmonizing my second one.
yeah, you're either dominant harmonizing, harmonizing dominant, and I'm
Yeah,
either creative normalizing, normalizing creative,
yeah,
which makes sense because which is perfect for us. That's the best type for us because
yeah,
look, you are NITE, so if you're NISI,
yeah,
that's harmonizing, and you boost your TE by dominant. So you're boosting your ego functions, which means your ego is stronger. Chase says that the people with the strongest ego functions are the most successful. I think he's right. And like for me, if I'm like NETI and I'm like a NESC, like a creative and TIFI normalizing. So that's the best probably for us.
yeah,
That that allows us to have the strongest ego block, which means we are like we have the most amount of cognition. So I think we did a really good job with this video.
yeah, we did. How much minutes you
It's
did?
over an hour.
Damn.
Yeah, I think this was a good video on subtypes. I think we should share it.
Yeah, we should, bro.
All right, do you want to finish the recording?
Yep, they're finished. See you later, guys. Thanks for
See you
watching.
later. Thanks for watching.
See you. Please follow us on Discord, Kaizen Mindset.